Hi, thank you for clicking the link. We are now on to the fourth and final pillar of the retirement readiness method. Hopefully the previous emails have given you a bit of an insight, a more holistic view on the things that you need to consider and prepare for a successful retirement. So we've covered things like identity shift, we've covered finding new meaning and purpose, structuring your time, managing relationships, your physical health, your emotional health, etc. All these things add in to what makes a really successful retirement. And this last pillar, this is what brings it all together. In this section, we're going to talk about managing the money. Hi, I'm Brian Butcher. I am the author of 10 Steps to Financial Success. And are you really ready for retirement? I'm a director of Ideal Financial Management Limited. I've been an independent financial advisor for over 30 years. I have an advanced certificate in financial psychology as well as retirement coaching. And I'm the one that's been sending you the emails. So this final pillar is all about getting the money right. This is, if I'm honest, where most people come to us with the questions such as, can I afford to retire? Have I got the money in the right places? Will my money last? How do I actually get my money out? Etc. And this is what we specialize in. So what I wanted to do today is put a video together to show you how we do it. So if you read my book, I talk about the importance of getting a professional cash flow produced. To put it simply, if you don't have a cash flow produced, you're actually guessing. And guessing is a big gamble when you've got a big decision such as retirement. If you get this stage right, you can usually go into your retirement with peace of mind and financial success. Get it wrong, and two other things could happen. You'll either run out of money, or potentially even worse, you die with too much money left, leaving somebody else to spend your money on their bucket list. So a professionally produced cash flow allows you to see into the future and to understand what the outcomes are likely to be based on assumptions. And then very importantly, we can come back to today to make any changes that are required. So let me show you how we do it in this video. What we see here is a timeline of a client's financial plan. And we've called these clients Mr. Retirement and Mrs. Retirement. Effectively, it's a very typical scenario that we deal with. And what we can see here is we can see along this horizontal bar, we have the ages of the client starting at 57 for him and 59 for her. And we can see their ages progressing as we go through this timeline right up to mortality at age 90 for each of them. And then the next thing we can see is these different colour codes, because what these represent are the different seasons in retirement. Many people think that retirement is one big date, when actually what you are planning for is a 30 to 40 year period of time with different seasons. And in these different seasons, you require different financial needs. And so your financial plan needs to recognise that, and it needs to plan for that. So to give you an example, what we have here is we have a purple phase here where the clients are working, because Mrs. Client wants to retire next year and Mr. Client wants to retire when he's 60 as well. So they're both retiring at age 60. We then come into a green phase, which we've called active retirement. And in this example, the clients have said to us that a year into retirement, they'd like to really splash out and do a world cruise. And it's going to cost them around about £20,000 to £30,000. The following year, they'd like to remodel the house and spend another £20,000 on things they've never got round to doing because they've been working so hard. And then what they also want to do in this active retirement, they want to spend an extra £15,000 per year on long-haul travel, because travel is what they really are looking forward to in retirement. And then they've said that at age 75, that they'll probably slow down and they'll spend less money. And so we have a period here called the slow down years. So this gives you an example of how we can sit with clients and build in these different life stages, talk to them about the goals, what objectives they have, the concerns, talk about longevity in the family, etc. And then we can put the events onto the timeline as well, events that may bring in money or cost money. So what we have here is a version of a timeline, a typical timeline that we develop with a client, so we can start to map out a life well lived. Now that we've built the timeline, the next thing to do is to start adding all your financial data. And that financial data is not just what is happening today, but it will also take into account of what changes are going to come in the future. So yes, we'll add in your income, we'll add in your assets, we'll add in your liabilities, we'll add in your expenditure, but then we'll also take into account of how that may change. We will add things like your future state pension. When will that come in? How much will it be? Any loans or mortgages that are due to be repaid. And then we'll build in any other lifestyle changes, such as you may want to downsize. There may be some inheritance, etc. So we don't just add in data today and have a static spreadsheet. We have a visible, real-life example of how you want your retirement to look. The final thing we will then do is add in assumptions. Assumptions about the future, such as inflation, assumptions about what your assets will grow by. So we may add a lower rate of return for things like cash accounts and a higher rate of return for things like investments and pensions. Once everything's in the system, once we've agreed everything, that's where the magic happens, and then that's where we can start to have a look at the outcome of your particular cash flow. So here we are now looking at expenditure only for Mr. and Mrs. retiring soon. And here we see the visible image of what their life is going to cost them. And we can see the level of expenditure anticipated each and every year. So whilst they are working, because remember the second client's not retiring until age 60, we can see the expenditure is higher. That's because there will be money going into pensions. That's because there'll be money being paid in tax and national insurance, etc. As soon as the clients retire, their expenditure drops. And effectively, we're looking to plan for about $54,000 a year for these clients. The following year, it goes up again because, if you remember, we've built in an anticipated expenditure of a world cruise. And then the following year, we've also got the home improvements. And then the expenditure drops and just rises with inflation. And then finally, at age 75, we've got the drop in expenditure as the clients have told us that their long-haul plans, which cost around £15,000 a year, they're also going to drop off the cash flow as well. And then we are left at this level of expenditure, which with inflation will be £65,000 a year, and then that rises with inflation till 90. So it's just an example scenario. We are trying to build a 30 to 40 years viewpoint in the future here. It will change, but this is why we also see clients on an annual basis. But let's just go back to where we are now. So that's what the life's going to cost them. The question now is, can they afford it? And this is where the beauty of a cash flow fits in. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in their current incomes. And what we can see now is 3 years of income, a higher income in this first year because both clients are working, but then next year Mrs. retiring early is 60, and so she's retiring, and so we're left in this example with 2 more income years for Mr. retiring soon. And then the following, so that ends there. And then what we're also going to click in is we're going to click in a final salary pension. I'm not going to go through the numbers. It's not that important. What is important is that you can start to see a visual image of what someone's financial future in retirement is going to look like. So here's a large lump sum from the final salary pension, followed by an ongoing guaranteed income rising to some degree with inflation. We've then got state pensions, and we can see here when we add state pensions that Mrs. state pension is due to come in when she's 66. Mr.'s not due till 67 based on the dates of birth. Now, looking at this position in time, what we have here is the life that they want to live being funded by the incomes that are guaranteed to come in. But what we can still see is quite a lot of red in the image, which means they've not got enough in state pension and final salary pensions to meet their planned expenditure. So at this point now, we're going to start spending some money, and we're going to start spending the money that they put aside in their savings, their investments, and in their private pensions or group personal pensions. This is just a basic example of what would happen if we spent the savings first. Probably won't happen like this, but here's a simple example. We can see that the amount that they've got in savings will only last into their second year. Then we can start to withdraw down the pension, and the pensions have sufficient funds in them to last until 74 and 76. Just about enough until the point where their expenditure drops. But even post 75, we can see there's a shortfall of £7,000 to £8,000 per year. So what we have here now is we have a situation where we have clients who have not got enough. There are only three possible outcomes from a cash flow. You haven't got enough, you've got too much, or you're just right. I call it the Goldilocks principles. So what can we do when we have clients that have not got enough? Well, this is the beauty of our software. When we have a client scenario where there's not enough money, there are certain insights that we can produce. So one of them will be annual savings. And this is where our software will calculate how much they need to save each year between now and retirement to fill that shortfall. And so what we can see here is that these clients need to put away another £24,000 a year over the next 3 years. If they can do that, that will fill up that shortfall that starts in at the 75-year-old age. Another insight is to look at the investment returns required. In this plan, I've just asked for a 4.5% return, so quite a cautious return, just 1.5% real return above inflation. By clicking on this button, I can see that the required rate of return is 6.25%. So one of the discussions that we could have with these clients is maybe to take a little more risk to attempt to get a higher return. Another insight is to look here at the retirement spending capacity. What the software is doing now is working out how much they can spend in retirement to maintain that lifestyle that they've requested. And we can see here that their spending capacity in retirement is £47,500. That includes taxes. If they withdraw tax efficiently, that will give them £42,500 per year. So that's another discussion point that we have with the clients. Are there any areas where we can reduce wastage that doesn't necessarily affect your quality of life in retirement, so that you can live and spend the money on the things that you really do want to do? The final thing I want to look at here is the lump sum savings required. And I'm going to change this timeline to Mr. retiring at age 60. And we're now calculating how much extra they will need at age 60 in one lump sum to meet that shortfall. And we can see here that this figure is £79,297. So they're £73,000 short on achieving their goal. So this could come from the sale of a business, if they're running a business or something like that. So what we can see here is a client that doesn't have enough, but we do start to have options now of things that we can discuss and strategies that we can put into the plan to enable them to achieve the goals. So there you have it, a whistle-stop tour of how we use our software to help clients plan for their retirement and ensure they've got the strategy right. In this example, we've a look at a client who I call a not enough client. We do get lots of clients come to us that are on the other side of the results spectrum, which is they've got too much. And this takes on a totally different level of advice and planning. Here we can start talking about inheritance tax issues. Here we can start talking about spending money in line with what's important to them and what their values are. So whatever the outcome, the key is to know what the outcome is as soon as possible. You've worked too hard and too long to make a guess at this stage of your life. You didn't spend decades grafting just to hope that it all works out. And while a professionally produced cash flow, it's not a crystal ball, but it is the best tool that we've got to be able to plan your retirement with clarity and confidence. So If you're within 5 years of retirement, or maybe you're 2 to 3 years already into retirement and you're still unsure about your financial future, get in touch. Let's bring your cash flow to life and let's help you build a retirement that you really can afford, not the one that you think you can. Click the link below if you want to get in touch and we can have a 15-minute discussion. You didn't spend. Now that the